Hello everyone, and welcome to another presentation in the ongoing webinar series offered by Thought Technology. We're very excited today to be able to bring you a new topic more related to performance enhancement, and that is, to be specific, a complex systems approach to precision performance enhancement. Our presenter, Dr. Mickra Hamilton, is the co-founder of Apeiron, where they use a systems-based approach to personalized performance enhancement. I'm really excited to be able to have you all hear how she considers the individual and its potential. All right, without any further ado, Mickra, it's your turn to present, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, John. I'm really excited to be here. I wish I could see everyone's faces because I love to actually be present with everyone, and I will be present, unfortunately not seeing all of your shiny eyes. Thank you for having me. I have been in the performance world really actionably since 2012, and meaning in a human performance subject matter expert way. My whole life has been about performance, and so, that's often what drives us into our passion. For me, a tiny background, in 2019, finished 30 years in the United States Air Force. 12 of that was active, and then the remainder reserves. But the last 5 was specifically focused on precision performance enhancement. And I was a human performance subject matter expert and worked with some of the top secret communities to inform higher performance, so that they had their best chance of being on top of their game in the field, and of course at home as well. So I'm going to move into where we got started a little bit late, and that was on me because of my tech difficulties. But let's get going, and I'll take you down the lane of what we're doing at Apeiron. So Apeiron Zoe is our corporation, and we consider ourselves the global leaders in precision performance human systems. This is the ecosystem of Apeiron, and we have performance centers. We have research centers, not research centers, but research and development division. We have an Apeiron Academy, which is for epigenetic precision performance coaching. And then we have genomics, a biometrics platform, and then a nonprofit foundation. And that is in part toward complex systems and mainly around PTSD and TBI whole systems resolution. And so we're very excited to offer a new lens of performance to the world. Often we tend to, some believe that we're broken and fragile. And, I would say that we definitely are not either one of those things. So we work with data-driven human systems performance, and it's a toward thriving model, toward thriving and flourishing, as opposed to away from sick. And, even in the performance world, what I see a lot of is let's get beyond average. And even that, let's get beyond average, let's get to the, the top whatever percent, still misses the toward lens. And, I like to first kind of ground the conversation in the lane of complex systems. And so, generally the human system is looked at as through reductionistic science, we're parts and pieces, and we have to make movement in this one particular area. For instance, if it's cognitive performance, we're going to focus only on cognition, or if it's physiologic performance, we're going to focus on really optimizing and enhancing the body. And of course, everyone in the performance world knows that that isn't true. Additionally, I'd like to add the concept of fragile and anti-fragile, Nassim Taleb. So, he said that our idea of resilience makes very little sense. He said we know what fragile is. That's something that can break, but there's not really an opposite of that. He said, let's do 3 things. Anti-fragile, which is entering an event, if it's your sport or if it's your life or if it's a trauma, entering that event and then moving beyond that event to be stronger than you've ever been. And in that way, you meet all of the new challenges with ease and enhanced performance. And, in the middle, he has the robust nature of the human, and that's where you're doing well. And that's the healthy place. So this conversation is really around what what is our potential as a human? And we all know that we break that potential over and over again. Look at the, the mile, how fast we're running miles. There's so many exemplars of us reaching beyond what we've ever thought possible from a human performance perspective. But, you ask the question, how do we really get there? And, when I look across the performance world that's currently here, what I see a lot of incredibly talented people doing incredible things that you might say, wow, that's amazing. How do they do that? I also see a lot of the stovepipes, in particular when it comes to professional sports and the military as well. We go, okay, we want that one outcome, and so we're going to send the focus to that. A lot of the things that keep us as a performance collective from actually reaching our potential are things like, in the hockey league, you can't wear any sensors on the ice, right? There's so many limitations on what can and can't be done in season, out of season. Mostly, I'm going to tell you, I think through a fear model. So I hope that kind of tells you where I'm coming from all of this. I know that data-driven precision performance, the N of one, right? The N of one, that's me, I'm unique, is where the future lies when it comes to enhancing performance. Okay, so this is some of what we do at the centers, and today is really about what's on the left. In particular, we're gonna look at autonomic nervous system enhancements, but we do a very detailed systems analysis. It's generally about 16 hours, and it looks at all the aspects of the human system, including the mind, right? How are the thoughts of performance affecting the performance itself? That's a really key component. But we're gonna really focus in on the nervous system and breathing today, because I think those are the two most actionable. But I will share with you how we do our process. When an individual comes in, and they have these diagnostics done, we're able to, also genetics and epigenetics would be in here and so many other things, but we're able to really get to the brilliance of their performance, what makes them so amazing, but also what's keeping them from being even greater than they are right now. And so after the diagnostics, what we do is we put together a program that informs the enhancement of what's already ideal, and also the optimization and enhancement of the things that are actually holding the individual back. And always through a lens of how are we going to create even greater and greater performance. And so I think these are the things that we use on the performance side, along with some detailed performance measures. But, one of my absolute favorite tools is the Psychophysiologic Performance Profile. And in the traditional medical world, they might call this a stress profile. And while it can be called that, we always look at it through the lens of performance as opposed to stress, because most of us who are high achievers and really enhanced performers, we don't look at stress as something negative. We also look at the relaxation profile. So let's see, how do you do life in the Psychophysiologic Performance Profile? How do the thoughts of the mind affect what's going on in the body? For instance, if I'm an athlete and I have an inner critic, and that inner critic is a smack talker, right? And telling me constantly how horrible that was and how much better I could be at that. That's definitely going to be something that's going to rob performance. Very easy to see on a Psychophysiologic Performance Profile, which is super exciting. When we go into the relaxation profile, we often think that we know what's going to relax us best. And I would say that while sometimes we do, if our level of interoception is not highly fine-tuned, it can be challenging to actually know what's going to be the ideal way for us to come down in our activity levels. And so, you know, I'd like to say, if we look at performance from the lens of really optimized energy management, and we said, okay, if we're in the state of idle, and idle means that we have coherent breath, our heart rate variability is quite coherent, it's quite nice. Everything is sitting in a state of idle, ready, clear, somewhat calm, not relaxed, somewhat calm, and also the ability to go up into action immediately, and then from that action, dial back down into idle to conserve energy. And so all of this is about knowing where we are individually, and then fine tuning so that we have sort of a facile, agile system that can move at will and very, very quickly. And so a lot of this is designed specifically for that purpose. We look at capnographic EndTidal CO2, and this is one of the most important things that I find missing in the industry is, you know, we all focus in the performance world on heart rate variability. We rarely look at what the carbon dioxide is doing. And as we all know, carbon dioxide is responsible for releasing oxygen to the tissues, to the muscles, to the brain. And the more oxygen release, the higher the performance. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We won't get into the brain mapping today, except I'll show you kind of what we look at. And then on the right-hand side, these are all things that we use for enhanced performance. The PNOE is a metabolic cart. The endopat is endothelial expression. The metabolic cart is super amazing in the performance world. The PNOE, it's Greek. And then the new fit newbie, some of you, many of you may already have this, but it's neuromuscular energy that opens up the pathways of damaged or bracing musculature. Is phenomenal. And then we tie it all together with neurocognitive evaluations as well, so that we can see really what's happening across that whole system. Now, I just want to point out, you remember the old way of understanding stress was take a breath and relax. And it was really focused on, you know, decreasing that sympathetic nervous system activation and increasing the parasympathetic. You know, unfortunately, it wasn't that simple. Then a new paradigm came that we're going to move to balance and coherence, which is also wonderful. Now I'm going to tell you, I'd like you to leap beyond this, because this is a small window into true performance. And so if we went to a complex systems understanding, and we said that, you know, the complex system is not reductionistic, linear, and stovepiped, as you see, you know, on the sick care, treatment care model, or even in a lot of performance models. It is really complex and adaptive, where every input that you give to the human system has an effect on the system and then provides an outcome on the backside of it. And so I have two examples here, you know, the eagle versus the airplane. You know, if you said, you know, going to release the eagle, and the eagle's going to fly, even if you had the same wind temperature, same wind speed, we're going to say the eagle's going to fly exactly the same way every single time. It's simply not true. The airplane will. You know, same with a human and a robot. We are so complex that it's just like limitless outcomes from the limitless inputs that are coming in every day. Okay, so we'll move over into the psychophysiological principle, and I assume that most of you are very well versed in this lane, but Elmer Green, who was a mystic psychophysiologist, he said every change in the physiological state is accompanied by an appropriate change in the mental emotional state, conscious or unconscious, and conversely, every change in the mental emotional state, conscious or unconscious, is accompanied by an appropriate change in the physiological state. And this is it, right? This is the chicken and the egg. What comes first? It's the and both, right? every input has an outcome. And so as you start to look at your system this way, it's, simple example, what is this food doing to my performance? What is this food doing to my sleep? What is this performance doing to my sleep based on time of day? What does my psyche and, my triggered emotional state do to my state of performance? And so we're going to look at all of those things, but exploring and integrating the body and the mind is what psychophysiology is about. We're, we must optimize and enhance the entire system to have the most optimal performance that we have available to us. Okay, so what's it about? Enhancing the human experience. And, you can take it all the way down into the performance of your specific lane, but at the end of the day, our ability to enhance human performance enhances our human life. So, finding out who we are collectively, finding out how we develop and toward what goal, exploring what the brain, heart, and breath have to do with it, because that integrated system is the key to really having a limitless expression. And then what is the role of compassion, empathy, and appreciation in the performance world? We don't like to talk about that. We say, what does that have to do with anything? And I'm going to say it has everything to do with everything, because a system that has those things, gratitude, compassion, appreciation, is a system that is coherent. And when that coherence is there, you have an opportunity to reach states of being and states of performance that you may not have experienced before. And of course, we're going to learn flexibility, balance, skill, and to relate well within ourselves and beyond. So why do we do the assessment? The assessment for me is about obtaining the precision data of how life is reflecting in the body-mind complex. Because just because I may be a very similar caliber to another athlete doesn't mean we are in any way alike. And so a lot of the things that I have under my hood that nobody sees during my performance, those are going to affect me differently than the next person. And so by having the precision data through this tech, we really get very precise about what's going on. Therefore, we're able to target our interventions very strategically, and they result in much more rapid outcomes, much higher performance. Okay, and also, the assessment allows us to understand what kind of training we're going to do. Okay, so in the performance profile, and again, I assume that many of you are using this. If you're not, it's something that I would tell you will be one of your #1 tools for performance. But there's a basic design. You look at how I as an individual am on a day-to-day basis. Then you present stressors, and those stressors might be mental, they might be imagery, they might be emotional, and you watch how the body and the mind recover. Do they recover back to baseline? Do they continue to build stress over time? And in Thought Technologies performance profile, it's 14 minutes. I mean, you're looking at such a small amount of time to get such valuable data. So we're going to evaluate the subjective feeling of the stress or relaxation. In the baseline, is there increased arousal compared to what we call norm from a performance perspective? Are there unstable values and patterns that indicate to you that something's going on within the mind or the physiology that really needs to have optimization? What is the reactivity? I've watched professional athletes and special operators who can face absolutely anything and have almost zero fallout in the nervous system. And I've watched others who can face it, get through it, and they're absolutely destroyed afterwards, and sometimes for days. And so this tool is so valuable in knowing who those individuals are going to be. And then recovery, how quickly do they recover? Once you determine all of this, then you can develop strategies to really enhance all of them, recover so much faster to the point where they barely notice. They activate, but there's no negative fallout in the body-mind complex after that activation because they turn it off immediately. And that's a really adaptive nature. Okay, the signals that we record on this, the electromyography. So generally we're gonna do the muscles of the trapezius muscles. Sometimes we'll put it on the face. It just depends on what's going on. But sweating from the eccrine glands, temperature at the fingertip, and that's going to be about 85 to 95 degrees is the normal kind of thriving temperature at the fingertips. And when you drop into the 70s, it's a vasoconstriction that mimics this evolutionary I'm in trouble kind of signal. Performance drops, right? You know there's vasoconstriction not just here, but across the system. And so it can often represent chronic sympathetic tone. And if that shows up, you're always gonna, figure out what's going on with that. Blood volume, pulse, respiration. And with ours, we do the chest and the stomach. We put another screen in so that we could record both, because we really want to see how much of the breathing is diaphragmatic and how much of it is vertical chest only, activating the sympathetic receptors in the lung, in the upper lobes of the lung. And then heart rate variability, which everybody I think is pretty good on that. And then what does the brain do during activity and during rest? And what are the places where the individual is more affected from a brain-mind perspective? So we look at all of that. We also add capnographic EndTidal CO2, and this is a tracing of it. What you see is the, my mouse will, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but you see here this purple line at the top that goes through the tracing. That's 35 millimeters mercury. That's a normal EndTidal CO2. Anything above that is a boost, right? Anything below it, and you're getting reduced oxygen delivery, it's between 20 and 60% reduced oxygen delivery, depending on where you are on the scale. Now, many of you who follow Patrick McEwen, Patrick's my buddy, I love Patrick's work, his Bolt. If you don't have this equipment, you can use a Bolt score to recognize what's going on in the chemoreceptors in the brainstem. Are they sensitized to CO2? And if so, one of the things that happens that I watch across the industry is, we're all training heart rate variability without checking CO2 and without really understanding how the Bolt scores, the blood oxygenation level test, sorry for those of you who don't know that, and Patrick McEwen's book is Oxygen Advantage. It's one of my favorite books. But, unless you correlate those two things, you could have incredible heart rate variability and really decreased performance. And I'm going to kind of leave it alone on that unless it comes up again later. But this to me is the add-on key to performance that almost everybody is missing. So happy to answer questions about that later. Okay, we also do a brain map to look at things like on the left graph is the alpha peak profile. That's the idling rhythm of the brain. You can see that this was 10.5. This individual is crunching a bunch of data. They're fast. This is the person who's on the plane in first class in the air before the others even buy the ticket, right? And then we look at what's going on where in the brain if things are showing up that are not ideal, and then additionally down into what brainwave states are being affected, and then where in the individual bins of those frequencies do you see the most effect. Okay, we also look at neurocognitive evaluations, as I said, the CNSVS on the, I guess that would be on your, it's on my left, is really gold standard. I love, we've used this since 2005. It's got just so much data, but executive skills, reaction time, memory, flexibility, it's amazing. And then the Cambridge Brain Sciences on the right. And they're looking at different things, but they give us a really good idea of where there might be things that are slowing down performance, whether it's cognitive or physiologic. Okay, so I'd like to show you the Thought Technologies Peak Performance Suite. And if you guys are doing this, just hang in there, right? I'll just tell you the way we use it. So what you're looking at the top on the far left, well, right, if it's your right, is you're looking at skin conductance, temperature, distal temperature at the fingertips, the trapezius muscles. The light blue is the left shoulder and the dark blue is the right shoulder. And then the red, it's actually heart rate variability that you're seeing. It's not heart rate itself. It's a reflection of the HRV. And then down below, you're looking at the respiration. The gray is the respiration coming from the chest. And then the blue is the respiration coming from the belly. So, you know, what we see with this individual is that they do have a cold temperature at the fingertips. Their skin conductance is very nice. And I guess I'll explain also the distinct blocks. So in the first block, we're looking at the individual with their eyes closed. They're sitting with their eyes closed, and it's really important to know what's going on when their visual spectrum is off. Some people are activated and some people are deactivated. Some people, there's no difference between the two. And so the first is eyes open, second eyes closed. And if we look at this individual, we basically see a similar pattern. So we wouldn't say that there's huge activation, although there is a little disruption in the respiration as he opens his eyes. You can see it in the exhales at the bottom of the trace. His and then we go into Stroop, which is a color test where you're looking at a color, but it's colored a different color. Then there's a rest after that. Math, serial 7, so you -7 from 1080, and then you look at the rest after that. Then there's a soccer task where you have to take your finger and keep the ball from hitting the post. And that's basically about reaction time, but it's also about, you know, are they going to get frustrated because they can't get the ball to stay still? And then there are tasks where you have them talk about their most awe-inspiring experience. And that might have been a performance on the field. It might have been in practice. It might have been something in nature, the birth of a baby, right? But you're looking for, how does the person's system do when they're in awe? Because one would think that awe is coherent and really nice and gentle, and yet awe in some people can be more exciting than actual stress. And so by knowing how they do awe and then how they recover, and then of course you go all the way into the most stressful experience that they're willing to share with you, recognizing that they're sitting right in a room, and then how do they recover from that? So it's baseline, event, recovery. But then we also look at what happens over this 14 minutes. And that's going to tell us how that individual approximate the best that we can, how that individual's going to be in performance, potentially, or after an 8-hour day that is challenging or easy, right? And so we look for things like, does the temperature drop? Is it already cool, and does it drop in the event? Is the skin conductance, does it rise as is normal? But then does it return to its baseline state in the rest period? Does it never return? Does it continue to walk its way up? And then, you know, on muscle tension, is the person in chronic muscle tension? And, you know, this individual is not, but there's bracing and activation when he goes into an event, and it doesn't turn off instantly afterwards. He is able to turn it off at the end, toward the end, and yet you recognize that if it's like this and he's tensing up during the day or tensing up in his performance, there's going to be a toll from that on the musculoskeletal side. And then on heart rate variability, you know, we all recognize that in order to get coherent heart rate variability with any power, you're going to have resonance frequency breathing. And so that's anywhere between generally 4.5 and 7 breaths per minute. of course, based on the volume of the individual generally as well. There's a male-female slight difference. But, in order to have heart rate variability, and you can see this individual does, he's breathing at about 7 breaths per minute during the study, and he's got longer exhales. And so often you see athletes, and this is what amazes me, you see high-performance athletes who are breathing in their chest at 19 to 24 breaths per minute. And you go, okay, how is that possible, right? It's because we're amazing as human systems, and we can do anything, right? So in those athletes, they're training in their sport, but in life in general, they're walking around untrained and actually in significant stress, which, as you know, reflects in performance. And so, and in this particular study, I don't have the EEG captured, but the EEG is at the bottom of this screen, and it tells you all of the different brain waves, picks it up here from the vertex or CZ, and it just shows you what's happening as you move in and out of events and at rest. And remember, it's a very gross estimate, but what we do with it is we take it and we compare it to what's going on in the full QEEG, so we get a much deeper dive. Okay, so that individual, so let me go back and show you this. This individual, if you just look at his respiration, and he's at 7-8 breaths per minute, and he's got some heart rate variability. So what we did is we moved him over into a training screen, and at the beginning, up until 1 minute, up until really 1:20, he was doing his baseline state, doing his, interesting longer exhale breaths, or exhale holds than inhale. And he was basically in this pushing the vagal brake so that he could relax his system because he had a bit of chronic anxiety. But so we put him into, it was 5.5 breaths per minute. And you can see his respiration. If you look up in the top, the green is the respiration, the red is the heart rate variability. And you can see, they're tracking pretty nicely. You can look down here in, these are the frequency bands that are measured. The low frequency percentage is what we're looking for. And you can see that, he's running 75, 85, 90 with a little parasympathetic activation. That, to me, this is the pink down here that you see. The pink is the parasympathetic. That, to me, is because he has these longer exhales. You don't see them as much here as you did here, but it's interesting because it's almost a trait that he's exhibiting that we said, okay, let's train this out. We also did his brain. I'm not gonna show you any of that, but he was definitely having some interesting expressions in the brain. So we said, hey, let's look at doing some neuromodulation, some neurostimulation to enhance some of the things that he wanted to be higher performing in. And so, okay, this was the power spectrum. You look over here, this is the power. This is one of the individual clips that you saw on the last screen. It breaks it out so that you can, and he was at 6 breaths per minute at this place. You can see his power spectrum over here. He's at like 7,000 at not quite at 0.1, but very close. And his temperature is still at 76 at this point, but we're just into that beginning training. Now, as we go to, actually, let me show you this quickly, because if none of you have seen this, this is basically kind of how this happens. You can see the different sensors being put on, the skin conductance on the hands, the photoplethysmograph on the finger to pick up the heartbeat. And then there's a thermistor, which is the temperature that goes in. The EEG at the vertex is being hooked up here. And then she has now the EMG sensors. She also has the CO2 cannula on so that we can watch what her CO2 is doing during these events. As I said before, it really has an effect. Now, there's a pulse artifact in one of the sensors in the shoulder, which can be artifacted out. So this is just really kind of this is that was a brainwave, but this is to show you some of the things that we do. So we also look at pictures. This is our anechoic sound chamber. We have a sound chamber that we do a lot of our tech research in. But we look at pictures of beautiful things. And of course, we add VR to our training as well. Okay, sorry, that was out of order. All right. Okay, so what we did with this gentleman was we put on neuromodulation, and what that is we put electrical stimulation into the scalp. And with this gentleman in particular, we did an SMR for the sensory motor rhythm, and this was for athletic performance optimization. We also used specific frequencies and basically ran it across the head. And it was a 25 to 30 minute stimulation session. And during that, we hook up the thought technology sensors on the entire system. We have the CO2 on, and they're actually doing peak performance training while they're being stimulated. Now, this is the other thing that I watch that I see could be improved across the industry is there's a lot of training going on that's stovepiped. There's only HRV. There's only brain modulate or neurostimulation or neurofeedback without looking at the body. All of it being done without looking at the actual chemistry of the CO2 and how that oxygen is being delivered. And so as you put all of these things together, what happens is astounding, because the things that were not ideal across the system in 10 sessions become ideal. You know, I've had an athlete with 6 standard deviations on his brain maps, his QEEG, and from 6 TBIs, and we did 10 sessions, completely normal brain. And most people would say that's absolutely insane, but I have all the data, so I know it's true. And he's 9 months out from those 10 sessions, and he still thrives. One of his biggest comments was he was grateful on the performance side, but he couldn't play anymore. But his biggest, he's an entrepreneur now, but biggest comment was, I have cognitive clarity that I've never had, even when I was, right, because he started having his TBIs pretty young. But even when I was at the top of my game, he said, now I have access to things I didn't have before. And so in our center, you will never find us without our thought technology turned on. And you can see this is the same gentleman that I showed you before. Now he's at 5 breaths per minute. His HRV is a little bit less, but his temperature is 91 degrees. And I mean, that's phenomenal for him to have brought that up. You know, I'll say additionally with him, he had nitric oxide genetics that were depleted and indicated the need for supplementation. So we did supplement that. And we do things from a genetic lens as well. I don't think we're going to get to those today. This is his CO2 during the training, the brain stimulation training. And he was at about 37 before. And this is really showing about 45 millimeters mercury. And because CO2 is the regulator of pH, it won't allow you to go above generally 45, 47, because then the body says, oh, too much. Now we're getting out of balance. But if you can stay close to 40 to 45, your availability to deliver oxygen across the system is significantly higher than at 35, and your recovery is significantly faster. So there's the CO2 plug again. Okay, should we take a break and see if there are questions? I know we have 10 minutes, and I don't want to.
No, that's fine. We do have 2 little questions coming in, and I realize you have a lot to talk about. The 2 questions I have are pretty simple. One of them is, in your experience, do particular fingers give you better or more accurate galvanic skin response or skin conductance values?
Well, so I'm going to say no. It doesn't mean that that's not true. It's more that I do things a very specific way. I have moved them around, and everyone I've trained with says maybe not that big of a difference. I put the skin conductance here and the HRV here, and you know, I think what you would do is you know, understand that there isn't a big enough difference for it to make that much of a difference, because you're simply looking at emotional reactivity, and you're going to see it, and it's almost instant. You know, when you're training someone and they're doing like great, they're so locked in, and their HRV is you know, their min max is like 30, 35. You just go, wow, you know, you're in awe. And then you watch that skin conductance shoot up, and you know that they've hit a pocket of an emotional structure. And so you see that before you actually see the drop in the HRV at the 0.1 hertz. And so what I do is I quickly say, so what's going on in your mind right now? Note it, we'll talk about it later, focus back on the breath. And so in that way, I'm able to cue them that something in their psyche has just erupted, and that they need to focus back on their physiology so that they're continuing to send those good, coherent, integrated signals to the body. Okay, go ahead,
Perfect. Other questions are, people are wondering what sort of capnometer or EndTidal CO2 unit you are using.
It's there's only one on the market, and it's a Capno trainer. It's Better Physiology is the company. Dr. Peter Litchfield and his wife Sandra, they've spent their whole life, 30 years. They're both in psychology. He's a neuropsychologist, but spent their whole life looking at how CO2 and behavior affect the human system. I did a master's. They had it's a behavioral, I think it was a behavioral sciences master's program that they had, trained with them, and they've been mentors for me. They're coming out with a new piece of equipment that actually will attach to the arm. It should be out like any day now, and it's also wireless. That's been the difficulty of it, is that, you know, you've got to do in vivo stuff on the Peloton or on the rower, you know, indoors. But as soon as they come out with that, and John, I can send you that in the, I can put that in the notes maybe of how to contact them. But it's, they also have certificates for trainers, that they're 3-month training certificates that will teach you how to actually work with it in this way. It's really valuable.
Thank you. No other questions right now, so you have about 5 more minutes.
Okay, all right. So I want to talk about the advanced strategies that we use along with, you know, the tech that we talked about. And, you know, for me, the tech is the validator. It's the evaluator and it's the validator. And if you don't track it, there's no way that you can know that the outcome is what you think it is. And so all of us, I have a Mark Athlete, Garmin Mark Athlete watch. All of our clients wear those. Also, some of them wear Oura rings. That's great for sleep, but not for performance. And so tracking is essential. But the advanced biologics, this is where we're going to be seeing a lot of enhanced performance. And it's interesting because already the FDA is going squash, 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 squash. Not allowed to do that, not allowed to do that. And so it'll be interesting to see how it affects the performance world. I think mostly nothing's allowed anyway. But peptides are, you know, basically sequences of amino acids. They're linked in a chain. They're made by the body for signaling. They're recognized by the body as natural, and that's why this is so essential. So when we look at testosterone, even though the testosterone is synthesized in a way that's identical to the body, it's still an outside input coming in, as are medications and supplements. They're foreign inputs. Now, peptides are not. They're highly targeted and they're very precise. You put them in, if the body needs it, it takes it. If it doesn't take it. So I'm going to talk to you just about what we're using in the brain right now when we do the brain training with the thought technology body-mind training. And so cerebrolysin it's from a pig pineal gland, and maybe people don't like that. And so if that's, I send you my apologies if that is not okay with you. I'm reporting what this is. And what it does is it improves BDNF, GDNF, CNTF, and they're all written out there, and NGF in the brain, decreases inflammation, it's neuroprotective, promotes new cell growth. It is amazing. I think there's only one pharmacy in the country now that's still able to have that. Decreases the neuroinflammation, decreases beta amyloid. And while we're talking about performance, it's important to recognize that performance often has a toll on cognitive decline, on cognitive performance and decline. And so these are going to become very important. AIDS and stroke, TBI, Parkinson's, antidepressant, ADHD, those are the normal uses. Dihexa is amazing, really improves cognitive function. It's just remarkable. And so I'll just move through these really quickly. Helps with hair loss too, which is kind of cool. Macular degeneration, stroke, and TBI. TBI would be the biggest thing in athletes. FGL, it's another one that increases neurogenesis, enhances cognition, neuroprotective, also antidepressant, reduces neuroinflammation. If you just look at inflammation in the body, inflammation equals stress, inflammation equals cortisol, or cortisol and inflammation, they walk hand in hand, and everything must be addressed for the system to function at its highest capacity. Also thymosin beta 4, which is TB500. I think a lot of athletes probably are aware of this, and trainers as well. You can inject this, and it's really, really healing, really healing. Also, yeah, it's pretty amazing, but post-stroke, post-TBI. All right, C-Length, this is a nasal spray, and it has a ton of benefits. Again, increases BDNF, serotonin, binds GABA receptors, which reduces stress and anxiety. I think more and more people are using this now as well. Antidepressant, antiviral, improve memory and focus. What we don't really have a lot of information on is reaction time. What is this stuff doing to reaction time? We're beginning to work with evoked potentials, ERPs, event-related potentials in reaction time, so that we can look at some of this. So there'll be more to come on that. Vasodilating inputs are essential, especially if you've got this chronic sympathetic tone of the system saying, I'm in trouble. Nitric oxide boosters are amazing. The Neo 40 is I think the Pro is the professional. It's a lozenge. L-citrulline, L-arginine, Cialis, and Viagra, they're great vasodilators, really good for performance enhancement. Ketamine spray, the doctors prescribe under certain occasions for use during the brain training and the psych phys training with the thought tech equipment. Ketamine spray's been found to do a lot of amazing things. Works really interestingly, and when you have a mental negotiator or you have an inner critic, it really is beneficial in that lane as well. And then because it decreases, the ability to self-monitor and increases emotional blunting, so the things that would normally bother you, the rumination, obsessive thinking of why didn't I hit that, why didn't I hit that, why didn't I hit that, really makes a difference. And then oxytocin, which is interesting. We've been working with oxytocin for stress modulation since 2013 with the thought technology equipment. And it's really fascinating how much it assists the human system in so many different ways. There is nothing that I've been able to find on oxytocin and performance enhancement. But who knows? I think we certainly have an opportunity to explore all of these things. Okay, other than the genetics piece, I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. I'll say on the genetic side that, when you have your genetic blueprint, remember, genetics are hardwired. They're there. They do not change short of some strange mutation. But it's epigenetics that actually changes the game. So I've got my genetics. I know my expression. Is it expressing? Yes, no. If it is, what mitigation can we lay on top of it? What strategy can we use to enhance the expression, to improve, to really optimize that expression in the athletic performance lane? We look at, I think, I don't know, something like 200 or 300 single nucleotide polymorphisms that take a really deep dive into things like performance, fatigability, recovery, VO2 max in not just overall VO2 max, but cardiac, metabolic, muscle. It's when you know where your deficiencies are, like if you have issues with fatigability and recovery, you can boost it with something like D-ribose, that MIT made for the Boston Marathoners. And it's a beautiful sugar that doesn't affect the system except to enhance energy profile. So I think we'll leave it there and take any questions. And then anybody can reach out if you have anything, additional deep dives that you'd like to discuss. So John, I'll turn it back to you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Micra, for this great presentation. I know there was a lot to get through, and we only heard snippets of things, but it was absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone who's been paying attention. Here's your last chance to send any questions in if you have for Micra. One person does want to comment. Thank you for taking me out of the kiddie pool and into the adult pool, which is always a fun, enjoyable comment. With that being said, there's people thanking you very much, and they're very much enjoying this. So it's mostly just praise coming your way from individuals. So,
John, I'd like to say before I go,
mm-hmm.
I've worked with pretty much all of the equipment since 2013, and I like them all. I think that each piece of equipment has a really wonderful quality. Thought technology to me is, and I have no financial interest in thought technology and no bonuses or benefits. So this is sincere from a performance perspective. It gives me more data than I've ever been able to get from anything else. Even has HEG, hemoencephalography to train the prefrontal cortex to get more, to get more blood flow. And of course that's essential. So I just wanted to say that, because I really love, John, what you guys have created for the industry, and I look forward to all the new things that you bring out next.
Oh, that's very kind. And I promise everyone we did not force you to say that. But no, thank you very much. That's really super. It's great when we hear back from clinicians how they feel on our equipment. Everyone is just commenting, thank you very much. Great presentation. So really with that, I think we're going to bring this to an end. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Mickra Hamilton, everyone. And thank you all the attendees. We hope to hear from you all at a future event. And please check up for our follow-up email listing. All right. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.